Wherever you are in the world, welcome to another edition of Jerry's Take on China. I get a lot of replies on YouTube and I endeavor to answer them all, but sometimes the answer is quite extended and it's going to be directed at someone I think will not care for the answer or even believe the answer. This comment spurred me to write a lengthy reply, which I've turned into a script for a video, as I think it's quite important. There are some people, it's hard to believe I know, who hate China. And they're disgusted by China's rise and would rather see China fail, return to poverty and starvation, than see it succeed. When I see these people, it's usually clear what they are and what their motive is, and I won't entertain them. But sometimes I see people like this one who appear to be genuinely misinformed and have questions to ask because they assume I'm some kind of paid respondent for the Chinese government. So when I see these, as I did to this one, I give proper answers and I hope that the respondent will learn that it's not me misinforming them, it's someone else. Then they need to ask themselves questions. And the most important question is this: am I being racist by assuming that everything coming out of China is bad? If the answer to that is no, then they must ask and answer to their own satisfaction another question. Am I being ignorant by not watching, listening, and reading what people who tell me I'm wrong are saying? And what I'm going to say now might sound a little arrogant, but is actually the truth. If, after watching my videos, reading my articles, or a comment that I give you, you still believe I'm lying to you, then I'm sorry, you're being one of these two categories. You're either racist and can't accept that China has it better than you, or you're ignorant because you haven't done your own research. If you have an open mind, you can check all the links and the citations that I usually place on my articles, and you can verify what I'm saying isn't my opinion. It's founded in reality and it's proven to be true. So then you can find an alternative truth which may exist, or you can accept that I'm correct and you were wrong in your assumptions. Then the choice is up to you. Are you open-minded enough to accept what I say might be true and confirm it by researching for yourself? If you are, then like me, you'll realize everything you once knew about China was wrong. And like me, you'll start to support China against those lies. If you aren't open-minded enough to do this, then you're watching the wrong channel, and my words are never going to convince you. I don't make videos for Chinese people. I make them for people such as this respondent, hopefully to correct misperceptions, misunderstandings, and hopefully to help open-minded people realize they've been conned into believing absolute rubbish by media and some populist politicians. I have some Chinese subscribers, but they already know how good they have it. They already know the truth. There is virtually no crime. There's virtually no substance abuse. Suicide is lower than all the developed world. Education levels are higher and universities are affordable. Life expectancy is high and health outcomes are good. The overall murder rate in China is very low. You are 75 times more likely to be killed in New Orleans than you are in Beijing, and 60 times more likely in Maryland, outside of Washington, D.C. Personal wealth is increasing with the largest middle class in the world, and China is poised to move from a developing nation, it's held that way because of the low per capita GDP against such a large population, into a middle income country. Think about this. There are more people in the middle class in China than there are people in the populations of the USA, UK, Australia, and New Zealand combined. The number is growing, and absolute poverty has gone from China, but poverty still exists and is reducing every year. Whereas in the USA and the UK, poverty is increasing every year. None of these are personal opinions. They're all figures drawn from outside of China, mostly from government or government-controlled websites, and all verifiable. If you'd like to take the time to prove me wrong, you need to cite places where you find my information is wrong. Your opinions, your ideas, your media articles, or speeches from politicians will not prove me wrong, but they will prove and confirm your bias. GDP, gross domestic product, as this respondent says, is definitely not a good measure. If it was, poverty wouldn't be rising in places such as the UK and the USA, where they have a very much higher per capita GDP. Homelessness doesn't exist in China. Although there are some people who appear homeless, they all have an address they can call home and a place to return to when they choose. Most of them are either migrant workers who prefer to save the cost of a rental, or people who have fallen through the cracks in the mental health system, something I am willing to concede still needs further upgrading, but is constantly improving, and I know this is true because I've personally worked in the disabled community here for over 15 years. As for bridges to nowhere, there's no such thing. Bridges go to all locations and they help people who used to take hours or even days to reach important places such as their markets. When people say China builds bridges to nowhere, they probably don't understand why the country has built a multi-million-dollar highway with bridges to a community with only a few thousand people. This is improving the livelihood of those few people at the cost of the many. How is that a problem? Let me emphasize that point. Every village in China, whether it has a few hundred or a few thousand people, now has a sealed road into it, and if required, bridges going to it. Now, what part of this is problematic for people in the West? Infrastructure in China is second to none, but cities are very crowded. Many cities here have over 20 million people. So China builds satellite cities, and it waits until the region is complete before moving people into a ready-made town or even a city, with metro systems, bus systems, hotels, restaurants, hospitals and schools already existing. Hence, if you are from a Western perspective, you might look at a ghost city and criticize China, but that's only because you haven't read the 5-year plan. It will be a thriving metropolis when you next visit it, if you ever do, because they will incentivize private corporations and they will move their public corporations and government bodies to occupy the region. People will be given travel allowances to visit their old homes, they'll be given additional leave to make it possible, and they'll be given discounts or even sometimes free housing as an encouragement to move. The comment stated that Chinese aren't stupid, and this is absolutely right, they aren't. The people outside of China amplifying a lot of media hype about China being poor, Chinese people being oppressed, and China collapsing are certainly making themselves look stupid. I live in China. I have done for 19 years. I've learned the truth because I've traveled throughout China, not by train or by plane, often by bicycle, through Xinjiang, Gansu, and two of what used to be the poorest regions, Ningxia and Guangxi, both of which are autonomous regions, and I've seen how they lived there, and in the past, and how they live there now. Anyone who thinks these people aren't or shouldn't be grateful to their government for lifting them out of poverty and towards prosperity would look like the stupid ones. So then I often hear comments such as, the CCP only does this to buy popularity. Wouldn't it be great if every government in the world provided increased standards of health, wealth, security, education, livelihoods for their people? Would it be fair to suggest that this so-called buying popularity is actually what good governance is all about? Another thing to think about is this. Most of those commentators who dislike China advise you strongly not to visit. They give you fears of arbitrary arrest. There's some kind of dystopian nightmare in China, and you're better off reading about it, but never visiting. I'm the opposite. I strongly recommend visiting China and find out. I've even offered, and have done this, to host visitors in the country, and I can guide you around. That's how confident I am in China. I'm willing to show what it's really like, rather than try to prevent you finding out for yourself what it's really like. What visitors see when they visit surprises them. They realize quite quickly that everything they've been told has been a con. If you're open-minded, you're probably already wondering and asking questions about China. Please feel free. Feel free to be open about what you believe and let people like me show you the truth. If, on the other hand, you assume I'm lying, then please don't follow or subscribe to this channel. Don't get into the comments and call me a liar, but by all means question what I say. But if you do think I'm wrong, let me know what knowledge or experience it is that makes you believe I'm wrong. If it's your opinion and it's not based on experience, if it's Western media reports or some politician somewhere saying something negative, I assure you, I'll prove I'm right and I'll prove they're wrong. So now it's really up to you. Thanks again for watching Jerry's Take on China, and I'll see you next time.